of our students and alumnus want to tell us a tiny little bit, otherwise we're going to run over time, about which program they're on and whether they did a year in industry or a year abroad or what they've been doing since. George, tell us a little bit about yourself quickly.
Morning. I did business management. I'm based on the Medway campus and I'm on my final year after my year in industry.
Okay, George, are you happy to tell us where you went on your year in industry?
Yeah, so I was based in West Malling at a small principal contractor called Ash Contracting and spent 13 months there with them.
Okay, cool. Kate, about yourself?
Yep, so I'm doing international business and I'm based on the Canterbury campus. And I'm in my final year after doing a year in industry at the Kent Business School.
Okay, cool. Well done. Hannah?
I'm studying international business at the Canterbury campus, and I'm on my final year as well after doing a year abroad in Australia.
In Australia, wow, look at that, fantastic. And last but not least, back to you, Steph.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Steph. I did an undergraduate in what was called management science back in the day, which is now I think business analytics, and then stayed and did a postgrad in management, yeah, so from 2005 to 2009 on the Canterbury campus. Okay,
cool. So we've got a great mixture here with us today. So yeah, back to you, Natalie. Are there any questions in the actual chat, or we're opening it up to real life vocal questions?
There's none in the chat at the moment, but George, Kate, can you tell us a bit more about your placement year, kind of what you had to do, what you learned from it?
Go, George.
So on my year in industry, I started off with marketing and I kind of molded my placement into where I wanted to go into project management. So it gives you that flexibility of learning what you want to do. So my day-to-day task was going out on site, I'd do social media posts, put the brochure together, a wide varied range, and it actually helps you decide where you actually want to put your career after university.
You get paid, don't you, George?
Yep.
Kate, what was it like? I've got to be careful because Kate was working for Kent Business School.
Yeah, so mine was a bit less structured in that I didn't really have a general direction that I wanted to go into. So I was looking to get as much experience as possible. And that's what I was doing during my applications. And eventually when I got Kent, it was a very diverse experience. I got involved in marketing and HR and a little bit of finance here and there. So it was a varied range of things. And then I got to figure out which aspect of business I wanted to specialize in after the placement. So yeah, it was an interesting experience being in a real life working office and actually living my day-to-day as though I was like a full-time employee, but yeah.
And we're all keen to know what Australia is like and where you went.
So because of COVID, I couldn't physically go, so my was online. It was quite interesting because I had to deal with the different time zones. So that meant having lectures and seminars at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. and stuff. But it gave me quite a lot of skills as in adaptability and being able to work online with other people with different time zones. So yeah.
Yeah, Hannah, forgive me for reminding you that you didn't go to Australia. Sorry about that. Yeah. Going forward, of course, students can go to Australia. And most of our year abroad placements, we have about a dozen. If any of you out there watching today are thinking of considering doing a year abroad, I'd recommend it. You can go to the University of Kent webpage and look up Go Abroad, and it will tell you by different courses where our partners are. Most of our partners around the world, whether it's in Europe, Asia, China, Australia, South America, most of them teach in English. Even in Australia, Hannah, I think they teach in English. Is that right? Yeah. Good stuff. Steph, did you do a work placement while you were at the university?
I didn't actually. I kind of did my 4 years straight, but in hindsight, I think I would have really enjoyed it. Interestingly, listening to George, I actually know George's employer for his year, and I know that that placement is a really exciting one, and it gives everyone such a good, well-rounded opportunity to learn a lot about a live business. And I think, in hindsight, I probably would have done that absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point. A lot of my students over the years have done placements. Many of them get offered jobs. I've had students in recent years being offered jobs at Microsoft in Reading, Unilever and South Bank, Bank of America, EA Sports, it's in the game, all these sort of places. Many of them delight in telling me how much money they earn when they come back and see us, which is a bit depressing for me, but great news to them. Cool. Would anybody like to ask any questions? We've got a few little things coming up. Anybody like to ask any questions? Come on now. Don't be scared. We're not that frightening.
How does University of Kent cater for mature students? I'm a mature student. I've recently applied to do BSc Accountancy and Finance. And yes, and I would like to take advantage of every opportunity and also support in terms of, yes, doing this course at probably a later stage, but for me, it's not a later stage. It's not the time that I'm opportune to do it. And I'm very interested and passionate about the course that I've chosen.
Well, that's a good question. I can tell you what I know. Just to give you a rough idea as a sense of perspective, I would say about 80% roughly of our student intake every year are students that have either come from their A-levels or many times now taken a year or two off. But every year I would say roughly about 10% of our students are mature, in inverted commas, mature students. There used to be a strict definition of what mature students was, which is over 21, which seemed a bit harsh to me. But anyway, anybody over 21 is often regarded as a mature student. In many ways, we treat them the same, but also there are opportunities to be treated different. If mature students have family commitments, childcare commitments, we try and be flexible in our timetable for such students in terms of which particular seminars they have to attend. So we try to bend over a little bit in terms of the timetabling for mature students. Clearly, mature students can attend all clubs, societies, all cross-curricular events as any undergraduate student. We don't try and sort of differentiate with them. So all the resources, the facilities, the study support for many mature students, one of the challenges is returning to study in terms of if they've been working or had a family career break or whatever. And so the university has, through its UALT department, a number of study skill support. So if you're having to relearn how to write essays or relearn how to do research or relearn how to frankly study again, do exams, then UALT, which is as I said, our study support centre in the central campus can help students with that. So in some ways, mature students are not treated any different, but we do offer greater flexibility to them. And there's a number of support mechanisms in place for mature students that we hope will encourage them to come to Kent. That's all I can say really on the matter. Sadiq, do you want to add anything?
I just threw it in the chat. There's the one thing Steve missed was that there's a mature student society where you'll be able to meet and network with other mature students, because often it's not that misery loves company, but you know, having someone to talk to about your experiences is always helpful and productive. So yeah.
Thank you. That's been very helpful.
Natalie, have we got any questions?
There's none in the chat, but we've got another hand up by Yao.
Yes, this question is more towards the students. I wanted to ask like what the difference, obviously when you go for placement year, right, you transition from classes to like working with an organization and also. I wanted to ask them how they found that transition. Was it easy? Did the school help you with that transition? Or yeah, that's just my question.
Okay, George, would you like to answer that?
There's two key transitions that I think are a bit of a challenge to students. So it's moving from the student life where you have your day will start at like 10 and finish at 3, and then moving towards a 9 till 5, which is very structured and that commute. And then when you come back into study, it's also a bit of a challenge moving from a very structured day back to an unstructured day again and trying to fit in with seminars and self-manage your time. Whereas at work, you're told what to do and it's kind of more structured. So it's that change in independence between the two.
George, did you find it easier being a student when you returned from working?
Definitely, yes.
Why? Okay, why was that, do you think?
It's because I felt that from going from a student to working, it was kind of a bit of a culture shock. Going from working back to a student, I was kind of more motivated to do work. I was more professional in how I did group work, and I kind of engaged with the student life a bit more.
Cool. I mean, I suppose what I'm driving at is, do you feel that doing the placement has improved your performance in your stage 3 on return?
Yes, and I have seen in my grades that from stage 1 and 2 to stage 3, there is a huge jump.
Okay, cool. That's good. Kate, do you want to echo any of that or add to it?
No, yes, exactly what George said. Work life was actually a little bit more easier than student life because once 5 o'clock hits, that's it, work is over, you can go home. But with student life, it can become a 24/7 kind of thing. So it wasn't too hard to make that switch for me. I think switching back to student life was a bit more of the challenge, but eventually you get used to it and you end up performing better, like George said.
I expect, Steph, I'm sure come 5 o'clock, once you go up the career ladder, it doesn't all finish.
Not actually. I'm coming to you today from a housing conference in Brighton, where I did a very lengthy day yesterday, networking and meeting new people. So I do agree, Kate, some days there are 9 to 5s and I relish those because, yeah, as you grow up the ladder, they become less of the norm, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, I as an academic, I like students that have done a work placement because when they return in their final year, they've got those transferable skills that they've learned, hopefully, at their employer. They realise perhaps that it's perhaps slightly easier being a student than it is in the full-time employment. And so they're often better time managers as well. That's my personal experience. And as George echoed, I tend to think students get better grades by and large if they've been on a work placement in their final year. Not everyone, but that's my experience today anyway. Okay, cool. All right, we've got about another 5 minutes. That's fantastic. Any more questions, either in the chat or people like to put their hand up?
Maybe we can talk a bit more about kind of the student life and things you can get involved in. Steph, I know you were kind of involved a lot with sport whilst you were here, and George, I think you were part of the society. So like kind of the social aspect of university, maybe we can talk about now.
Yeah, I was absolutely. I really enjoyed the social side of university, and actually that helped grow my network while I was at university. I was very lucky. I had probably 4 or 5 groups of people that I really got on really well with. I was part of netball. I was also part of an executive kind of board within the sport of Kent, which was an elected position. So that was a really exciting opportunity to become a part of something. And yeah, I'm sure George will probably echo my sentiment there.
Yeah, I have to say, also, if you're on the Medway campus, you kind of have the best of both worlds because you have GK Unions on one side, which looks after all 3 universities. Because on this campus, you've got Greenwich, Kent and Christchurch. So they look after each other. You have networks from all different parts. They bring each other. You've got the shuttle bus just outside the accommodations. That's half an hour down the M2 and you're in Canterbury. You have the Canterbury social life and all that. And on the Medway campus, we've got the Medway Business Society that I'm vice president of. So we run events with the Deep End, do networking events and work quite closely with Kent Business School and the Medway campus as well.
And Kate, I know you've been involved in a lot of different club societies, is that right?
Yeah, so I decided to look more externally. So I wasn't really interested in the business societies. With volunteering, and its societies are available to all types of students across all disciplines, so you don't need to follow your discipline society, and it is a great opportunity to get those soft skills outside your academics.
Hannah, have you been involved much with clubs or societies, or has it not been your bag so much?
No, not really.
No, that's cool. It's each to their own. I mean, a lot of students at graduation often say, oh, I wish I'd done more, and different clubs, societies, from, I don't know, ballroom dancing to craft beer. In fact, you can join both those societies and have a drink while you're dancing, which is fantastic. Okay, cool. Natalie or anybody else like to ask any questions? We've got a couple of minutes left. I'm sure we can squeeze a few more on. Most students, I would have mentioned briefly accommodation, because students like to ask a lot about accommodation. Most students live on campus in their first year, mostly 90% plus, and a lot of students then tend to get flat shares, house shares in Canterbury or Medway going forward. Was that your experience, George? What did you do?
I've stayed in accommodation for all 3 years. I think the majority of people in Medway stay at Pier Keys, which is the main accommodation. So in phase one, you have all the first years, so you have an ensuite room, your Wi-Fi paid for, bills paid for, laundry on site. And then second year, third year, you move into phase two, which is nice accommodation. And there is the option to move into rented accommodation and in Gillingham, but the majority of students here tend to stay in Pier Keys.
Hannah, what did you do? Have you been first year on site? What did you do?
So I've always lived off campus due to cost because it was way cheaper. So in my first year, I had a friend that she was already studying here in Kent. So she helped me find an accommodation off campus. In my second year, I moved out with her and another friend that I met in second year. And then on my third year, I found an accommodation with Kate. So, yeah.
Okay, so Kate, you're with Hannah now, yeah?
Yeah.
Were you in halls in the first year, Kate?
Yeah, so I followed the traditional student route. First and second year was on campus, mainly because I am an international student, so it was a lot easier to just be on campus. And then when I finally settled in the UK, I decided to move off campus for my third year. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very typical. You're right, Kate. And there's a big variety of accommodation. Not quite so much up at Medway, although George described it quite well. But at Canterbury, we've got a big range of accommodation. What can I say? The more you pay, the nicer it is. It's like life, really. Steph, I don't want to sort of, rake over the past too much, but were you in halls and then had flat, or what exactly?
Yeah, so I have to say I did first year on site on campus, which was fantastic, a really great experience and a great way to meet people in your first year. Second and third year, I was off campus. I was lucky. I actually lived with my first year flatmates for the entire time I was at uni, so, which is a rare experience, I think, for some people. And then actually when I did my postgrad, I actually stayed on campus as well. So that was a really lovely experience. I was in a network of postgrad students at Wolf, so that was really exciting.
That must have been when Wolf was fairly new, Steph.
It was brand new. I was one of the first residents at Wolf, which is exciting.
It used to be a football pitch. I've played football there, but anyway, I digress. Okay, cool. I think time-wise, Natalie, we're getting around to 1 o'clock now, so I think we're going to have to wrap things up. Thanks for everyone for joining us today. All our current students, thank you very much. And Steph, thanks again for joining us today in your very busy schedule that goes beyond 5 o'clock every day. Dr. Mohammed, thanks very much for your overview, and Natalie online. So we've got one last hand going. I'm always reluctant to do this. If we have a hand going up, is that Keisha? Do you want to ask a last minute question?
Yes, I do. I'm currently doing a foundation, but not at Kent. I'm trying to transfer to Kent. And the thing is, my visa, you know how you're supposed to get a CAS to get your visa, but my visa expires way after the time you're supposed to get the CAS. But it does expire this year, just a bit after we need to get the CAS for first year in Kent. So I was wondering how the uni is supposed to help you.
That is a very good question, and the short answer is I don't know, because myself and colleagues within the division do not actually deal with CAS and admissions. Natalie, could you give your contact details and we could look into this? Is that okay?
I've just put the KBS admissions email in the chat. Email the query to that email and we'll get back to you. It's a bit more complicated than what I'll be able to answer today.
Exactly. I know, Keisha, forgive us, I know a little bit about this, but I don't want to give you any duff information. Steph has left us because I appreciate we've gone past the time now. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully see you all in the not too distant future. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.